Wednesday.
Calling all musicians, new artists, singers, composers, poets, and producers.
Play your music, man. Play your music.
It seems your career is on a treadmill, huh? Got some tips for you. So don't touch that dial. It's Music Business Night, right here on the Sir Walter Jones Show.
I guess he heard me. Hello, Facebook Live. How y'all doing? Y'all all right over there? Where y'all at? Over there? Oh, there y'all are. It's good to talk to y'all. I know you're like, what are you doing? He ain't never late. I know. It's raining. Oh, my soul. You know the song. You might as well sing it.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Any second now. The Spirit's going to wash over me, and the words are just going to flow out.
Yeah, all right. We'll do that. Yeah, we're talking about the role of the church. How about that?
What?
The role of the church.
The role of the church.
In our lives.
In our lives.
Okay, can you handle that one?
Sure.
Right.
I'll give it a good shot.
You ever go college try?
Yeah.
Type this in here. Role of the church in our lives. I really need a staff. I really need to hire a staff.
I'm sorry, other than going hard.
I ain't done for this station.
You said hiring staff?
Yeah, my whole life.
Ready, sir?
As I'm going to be. Yeah, here.
He waiting on you to point to him. Oh. You gotta be plugged into the
All right, so good.
Okay, let's go.
Hello, man. So welcome to the Jones Show. I am he. It is Wednesday. It is the day that the Lord has made. Ooh, let us rejoice and be glad in it.
Amen.
Oh man, my headphones are hot. Headphones are hot. And like this room. Unlike this room. Turn them down. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have got another exciting show today here as we prepare for the craziness that's going on outside. Today is, well, it's a balmy 50 degrees.
Wow.
Outside, and it's beginning to rain. It's beginning to look a lot like, well, not Christmas yet.
No, not Christmas.
But like April.
Yeah.
It's beginning to look more like April today, y'all, as Chicago go through an all-weather seasonal thingy. For the past couple of weeks, we've gone through some crazy stuff. It's been, let's see. We went through the 80s, then 70s and 60s, and then rain, poured down rain, then torrential rain, and then it stopped and went back up to the 60s. Okay,
I think it's just going to do whatever it
yeah,
wants
it's going to do what it's going to do, and then bam, it dropped down to about 30s at evening and evening time. Now it's raining, and the snow's coming soon. Don't worry, y'all.
Yeah, it is. Sooner than we think.
Sooner than you think it is. Okay? All right. Okay, today we're talking about the role of the church in our lives. The role of the church in our lives. Crystal, you doing all right?
I'm doing fine.
You look beautiful as usual.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
You're an all-weather girl too, because every time you come here, you got a different look.
Do I? Oh well, yeah. You know,
Yeah,
I gotta try to. I'm trying to, you know,
But
just make it work.
What's with the black women and the ability to be able to do such diversity? Because you know, white women are a little jealous of y'all.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I heard. This is what I heard. I was watching TV.
We're not trying to inspire jealousy. We're just trying to do what's inherently ours to do.
Inherently. Okay.
Inherently.
This week, you know, I got to Google that one. Yeah, inherently. Okay, that's
It
something
means
that you were
which
born
is
with.
in us. That's what you're born with.
Yeah. You black women out there, y'all are beautiful.
Whatever.
Y'all gonna look like mama, grandmama, mud dear, big mama, little mama, granddaughter, all at the same time. It's just amazing.
You gotta be all of that.
You gotta be all that in the bag of chips. Just amazing how y'all able to multitask in your looks. Okay,
Absolutely.
we're gonna upcoming. We're gonna be doing a show about you know the. I have no idea what's going on in the background with Antoinette and her hair. Lord have mercy. She pretty too.
Oh yeah.
All the women in this place is pretty.
They're gorgeous.
I don't know what a single man gonna do around this here station here, but this is just amazing. I gotta look at Allen
We
Washington.
can't help it. We just gonna be what we can be.
Yeah, well, I'm just blessed to be amongst y'all. I want to talk about the church. Hello, Lady Michelle and Lamari Brown and Robert A. Taylor, and gosh, quite a few of you are tuning in right now. We want to talk about this. Janice, hi, Marty, hi, Vanessa Craft. We're talking about the role of the church in the world today, in our lives. All right? Okay. All right. You know, yesterday kicks off the 500th anniversary of Martin Luther.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, not Martin Luther the King.
Was he the reformist?
He was the Reform man.
Okay.
He's the starter of
Wow.
the Lutheran Reformation.
Okay.
Yeah, that thing here. He stamped. He took his email and stamped it on the
door,
on
at
the
the
cat.
doors or wherever.
On the door, the theses, yeah.
Where was that?
On the door of the doors of the church,
Okay.
Catholic church. His demands. All right, of course they didn't adhere to his demands, so he wound up spitting on moving forward because he read the Bible finally for himself, and he realized, oops, somebody been lying to me. There's a whole bunch of lying going on, even today still.
It's the same story.
Same story.
Same story.
It's the
Different
same.
day, same story still applies.
Still applies. Okay, a pig is a pig.
Or a duck is a duck.
That's a duck.
Okay.
Who's that? Sarah Palin said you put lipstick on the pig?
Yeah, that's right.
It's still a pig.
Right. Who's that?
Yeah. What's in the name?
Yeah.
Okay. By any rose, it's such a name. It's still a rose.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So I want to talk about this, and maybe you can kick this off. Can you introduce us to this subject, and what do you think is the role of the church?
Well, I think that the basic command that we were given, we were supposed to go into the world and we were supposed to teach and make disciples of all men.
I see.
But what seems to have happened is that the church tends to kind of become a building surrounded by four walls. And people tend to come to church and the discipleship, I don't think, is taking place the way it's supposed to, and I think that it's not taking place. One, the message isn't where it can take place universally or globally, and because of that, we tend to we're kind of held hostage by the four walls of the church. We have not gotten out in there in terms of. I know there's been some ministry. You know, some people have gotten out and they've gone and they minister to other countries. But we have not gone into what I would call the 7 basic spheres of influence, meaning first, church, family, government, law, media, arts, entertainment, businesses. We're supposed to dominate those areas as well in terms of the church and the message of the church. And because we haven't, now the people and the influences that are governing it are affecting us instead of we're affecting them.
They are affecting us. Help us out here. How is the world affecting us?
Well, it's just like with anything else. Let's take media, for example.
Media.
Let's take media.
Yeah.
The media and the people who basically, if you control the media, you control the message.
Yes, you do.
So if you control the message, then that message which is being put into the masses is the message that they want to propagate. Am I using the right word?
Yes,
They're putting it forth. So in other words, for example, let's take for example the homosexual agenda. Okay, they dominated the media. They infiltrated, then dominated the media. So now when you watch television, practically every show that you watch is going to have a homosexual influence.
Sure.
So we basically, I guess maybe from the standpoint, we also have to get straight on our message in order to be able to put it out there.
Gotcha.
But we have a lot of conflict in terms of even our message within the four walls before it goes out into these areas. We're supposed to be able to influence business. We're supposed to be able to influence media. We're supposed to be able to influence government. We're supposed to be able to influence education. Educational system right now, we are, it's subject. You send your children to school and you're not even sure of what is being taught your children. Your children are being taught by a lot of influence. I used to know a friend of mine, used to be a friend of mine, that was a teacher.
Used to be kicked you out?
Well, no, I had to let her go. Because it was that in the church we become, in our quest for knowledge, I believe we also become we have this quest for power, which means that sometimes some people don't care where they get the power from.
True.
And so she would do things like, she says that she would belong to this prayer group, that they would like channel the light.
Oh.
And they would channel the light over an object, and then it purified the object.
Oh my.
So she would like channel the light over cookies and give them to her students.
Okay.
So in other words, you know, a lot of times because we don't control that influence, a lot of other influences are coming in and they're directly affecting our children. I'm sure that practically everyone who has children go to school, there's usually someone there that's promoting a homosexual agenda.
Sure.
Or things that we don't believe in. We just had Halloween. They just had Halloween.
Sure.
Do you realize how they ostracize children who don't participate in Halloween within the school system?
Really?
So yeah, I mean, it's like they make you feel like you are, you're trying to do too much by not participating in Halloween, so they put you in a class by yourself. They don't want you to talk. They want to punish you for not participating in Halloween.
And their holiday. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Well, see, now you know how to feel to be a part of a real radio station with heat lights.
Oh wow.
she
I'm inspiring.
Well, I tell you,
I'm glistening.
they tell me hell is 1,000 times worse.
Yeah, I can't take hell.
Yeah, so just deal with this one, okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's Johanna's fault. It's Johanna's fault. Yeah, you brought out some really great points there of the pecking order. This list of the things that we're supposed to do to push ourselves out. We shouldn't have to push ourselves. We should be already out there.
Absolutely.
Already established.
Exactly.
Okay, you brought up the homosexual agenda. Okay, I want to talk about the force that they have, the ability, not so much the sin, but the ability to be able to tell the media what they demand, and the media comply. Okay, I did this show on this station here about the influence of the homosexual community or the LGBT and how powerful they are. They are a force to be reckoned with, and they told every one of those stations, NBC, ABC, CBS, okay, that in MSNBC, that you must introduce a character, whether it's in a role of play, whether it's in the news or what have you, backstage, what have you, you must, and they have to be introduced at every hour.
Wow.
This character must, yes, I'm trying to tell you. And you have to
I didn't know that.
You have to go to GLAD, glad.com.
Okay.
And you'll see how they infiltrated not just media in television or video, but also in print. Okay? And they complied with it. Unfortunately, us who are Christians, okay, we say we are a Christian nation, which we've never been one. Just need you to know that. We were one by words, but not in deed.
Absolutely.
Because if we were a Christian nation, slavery would have never happened.
That's true.
You understand? And then after slavery, okay, they repented for slavery. They say, okay, well then Jim Crow happened.
Okay.
The prison industrial complex happened. Okay, all kind of crap happened. The KKK happened. So we were not a Christian nation. All right.
Okay.
And so then immoral laws passed.
Absolutely.
So we're not a Christian nation. All right, but because we're not a Christian nation, don't mean that the Christians need to sit on their do-nothings and do nothing. So our responsibility is to go out there and do something to enhance someone's life.
Right.
And it doesn't always have to be to try to get everybody saved. All right.
Okay.
Now, all right. Here's the narrative.
Okay.
Is that we think that we got to go out there and throw a Bible at people.
No, you can't throw the Bible.
And try to make them get saved.
No.
No, that's not it. Actually, the way Jesus did it was so GQ.
That people wanted to. They made it so
Bam.
that they wanted to.
Because they saw his
They were
life.
flocking.
They flocked because they saw his work.
Exactly.
And he talked to them like regular people.
Exactly.
And I always bring up the story of the woman at the well.
Mm-hmm.
How he talked to her.
Exactly.
He didn't say, you need to get saved, you
Yeah.
devil, you're going to
Or
hell.
ignored her,
And he
made her
didn't
feel
ignore
bad
her.
for being at the same well.
Nope, don't do it. He was just sitting there. He was just right there with her.
Absolutely.
And then go ahead and draw from the well.
Absolutely.
Okay? Do what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Pretty much
Absolutely.
like military say, at ease. Or
Exactly.
as you were.
Exactly.
Okay? Yeah. And then he just pretty much talked to her. Told her about herself.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, wow.
Right.
And she ran and said, go see a man.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that everywhere he went.
Mhm.
And the people, the Bible says the people followed him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Atheists follow me, believe it or not.
I gather.
And they don't, yeah, they don't even know why.
Well, I think that it's because it's the light that you draw with what you do. You are inclusive, you're not exclusive. So when you include people, then that leaves the door open for them to come. But if you're going to make everything so exclusive, look, it's us four, no more.
Right.
You know, or it's just us. And if you don't do what we do, then you can't belong and whatnot. You're being very exclusive and you're pushing people away. And where does he tell you to do that? Where did he tell us to do that?
In the church basement?
No, I didn't read that scripture. I didn't read that.
I thought it was in the basement. That's where the chicken dinner's at.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh, not there?
No,
Oh.
well, no.
All right, she agrees. She agreed to disagree.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, out there.
Mhm.
Highways, byways. And we did our post today, or was it yesterday, about how Jesus, 99% of his miracles were
Mhm.
done on the street,
Right,
out there with the people.
exactly.
With the prostitutes and the
Exactly.
tax collectors and all people that y'all Sean says these are horrible sinners, they're going to hell. And Jesus sometimes when you read scripture it's kind of funny
Mhm.
because the disciples were asking, who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom?
Oh, right, they were.
Yeah, who's going to be the greatest? I'm going to be the greatest. I'm going to be the greatest. And Jesus
Right.
said, okay, you see that little boy over there?
Mm-hmm.
The little kid right there?
That one.
Y'all ignoring?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he going to be the greatest.
Oh, wow.
They're like, no, can't be yet. He says, and furthermore, you see that prostitute right there?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that one, the one we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, that hoe.
We're trying to pretend we don't know.
That right there. Yeah, you see that harlot?
Right.
Yeah. He said to them, she's gonna get to heaven before they do.
Oh, wow.
I said, oh my goodness.
Mm-mm.
Ain't that something?
Yeah.
Now that's a slap in the face. You're an
It is.
apostle, a prophet, you're an evangelist, pastor,
Mhm.
teacher, and then Jesus Christ, the one who died for you, says,
Mhm.
you don't, no, y'all see that prostitute or
Mhm.
that pimp, okay, who y'all keep talking about in church?
Mhm.
That homosexual y'all keep talking about in church?
Right.
Yeah. They're gonna get to heaven.
Before you do.
Now, I wonder.
Instead of you do.
Yeah, it's in
Mhm.
many cases instead of you.
Mhm.
Why do you think Jesus said that to these so-called people who were supposed to know?
Well, I think part of it has to do a lot with humility.
Ah.
These people came, they weren't as the one who came and said, you know, Lord, I do this and I do that and so on and so forth. And versus someone said, Lord, save me.
Ah.
You know, they were looking for salvation. They weren't looking to come in there and tell God how to do it. You
I
know,
see.
they were looking for salvation and they were humble and they were desperate. You know, I think that a lot of times people within the church, they develop the system and then within the system, they become lifted up. And they forget why they're in the system. They forget that they can do nothing without God. Where someone who is, say, a prostitute or whatever, who's not had this experience, now they're like, I can't do anything but for God. So, you know, I mean, God is where He's where He can be needed. We need to need Him. We can't come in our own, puffed up in our own ability and in our own might and in our own power.
We need to need Him.
Exactly, we need to need Him.
Music playing. You hear it?
Mhm.
All right. I gotta go to this break. Someone on the show. We need to need Him.
Mhm.
You hear that music playing?
No.
Oh, you wrap that up.
You're so sweet.
Wrap that up.
So, yeah. So, as you
yeah.
said, we need to need Him.
I saw you. Yeah.
So,
Huh? What? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, y'all just got to deal with this.
You live on YouTube, we live streaming.
We
we
trying.
said don't forget.
Oh no, I never stopped talking. Yeah. How long you been with me? I want to announce this Met thing when we get back on the air. It's Peace Planter Awards. I ain't nowhere on this piece of paper. I ain't announcing nothing.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and I'm drinking hot tea.
Mm-mm.
In a hot room, 2 lamps, and the heat coming up from the ground. Because heat rise, you know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, how y'all doing? Facebook Live over there too?
Yep.
Man, it's so good to see y'all. I'm just highly ecstatic, and I don't know any other words because you're more educated than I am.
Oh, no.
I just want you to know, hi.
I
How
just
y'all
read a
doing?
lot as a kid.
Yeah, if those of you who are watching this tomorrow, go ahead and put in the comments what you think that the role of the church is. Okay? I may read it on the air tomorrow. You're on YouTube and you're on Facebook Live under the Urban Broadcast Media app. Tell us what you think the role of the church is. What you think the role of the church is in America today. And are we doing a great job? Give us a point. A, B,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think
C,
in terms
D
of
minus.
exactly when we talk about the role of the church, from the
Yeah.
standpoint, I mean, it's to equip us
To
in order
equip
to
us.
be able to get the message out there in a way that people can actually receive it.
Oh,
I think that if we put the message out there in a way that nobody's going to receive it, it becomes a lot of noise, and you know, it becomes something that people more easily ignore.
yes.
You know, so we don't want people to ignore our message, but at the same time, I think that we need to become that which we say that we believe. For one, we need to become that. We need to evidence that. It's kind of like we need to be able to. What is it about the rich? No, the poor guy, the poor wise man. You know, the poor wise man who nobody listened to because he was poor. He may have been wise, but he was poor.
The poor wise man was wise.
He was wise. He was
But
wise,
he
but
was
he was
poor.
poor. When wisdom is supposed to make us rich.
Wisdom's supposed to make us rich.
So if the wisdom, even though he was wise, but his wisdom didn't make him rich,
Uh-huh.
the question becomes, how wise was he really?
How wise was he?
Yeah.
Ooh-wee, you posted some great stuff here. Boy, you're going to do a straight training here on the Sir Walter Jones Show here. Boy, you just train. This is on job training for you.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, you co-hosting like crazy.
I'm telling you, I love it.
Boy, I tell you,
I love
man,
it.
you're
It's
just
great.
doing it, man. And you,
I love it. It is the
You
thing.
like a
Come
crazy
on.
woman. May I
Yeah.
tell you, yeah. Now, by next week, you might know how to host your own show. And then it's going to be the crystal, let me see,
I don't
Oduro and quoting, there's all kind of names.
close, but,
Yeah, the CO
That's not even
K
give them all
show.
to you.
The
There's
Coke
a bunch
show.
of them,
Peace Planter Awards, y'all, November 17th. Watch out, meet us over there. Right across the street over there. Right next door. Mhm.
Really?
Yes.
What's that
it's
about?
the Peace Planter Award. I love this name here. Right next door at the Met. The Met, the M-E-T.
Yeah. So what
M-E-T.
is that about?
Well, this is what it's about, okay? I don't know. You see, these people here is on this here fly, right?
Uh-huh.
And apparently they are very important people,
Okay.
okay? And they spread peace.
Peace.
And they plan
We
it
need
too.
peace.
Yes,
Okay.
we do, okay?
They
And
plan peace.
They planned it, and they're
Okay.
worthy of it, okay? We got the great D. Curtis Randall here. Award winning. He on the list on here. You got Sonia Blakely is the
Ooh.
mistress of ceremony.
Okay.
Yep, I just brought her in last week to be our mistress of ceremony at our church.
Beautiful.
So if anybody the mistress of a ceremony,
She's the
this
one.
I'm telling you,
Okay,
Sonia.
don't wanna miss it.
Sonia Blakely. Let me tell you, boy, no script.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you ain't got to tell her nothing.
Oh, wow.
She just flat-footed.
There's some
and just,
people like that,
I think
yeah.
she a Jones, because she
Gifted.
act just like me. I
Uh-oh.
don't know what it is. No script, no preparation, bam. You know, and she's funny. She's
That's
hilarious.
beautiful.
So get to know her. She Church of God in Christ too, by the way.
Okay.
I said it. Yes, I did. Coaching girl. All right, Dr. Wilmetta Green, the music director, and Teresa Griffin is the featured entertainment. These people I know. I know all these people. Leon Walker, God, Gallery, Guchard. I don't know how to pronounce that name. He looked familiar though. I know John Rogers.
Bouchard.
Yep. Lifetime Superior
Bouchard.
Service. Tim King, educator. Man, I know all these people. Dr. Mildred Harris.
Ooh, I know her.
Faith, and then Sylvia Ewing is in media. Yep, and Jamal Cole,
Beautiful.
Young Achiever. Man, this is good stuff. I plan to be there.
Absolutely.
Or be
Sounds
square.
good.
Yeah, be there, be square. The general admission is $50. The reception starts at 6 o'clock. Okay, but if you want to sit in the front row with me, it's just $100.
Wow.
You're gonna spend that this week.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. At Ruth Chris. You may have to add more $3 on top of that because that porterhouse I had the other day, that was $85.
Ooh.
Yeah. Shall we continue?
Oh,
it was a good porterhouse, by the way.
I'm sure it has.
But I left there with a $190 bill. So why don't you just make it cheaper and go next door and support these
and
brothers
get fed spiritually.
Man, it's gonna bless your heart because Leon Finney's his barbecue shack is opening up again, and I've been waiting. That's why I'm skinny now because I haven't been able to eat any barbecue.
We used to go there when we were kids, all the time, all the time. Over there in Chatham.
Chatham, yes.
Okay.
Yep, Chatham 9th Street. 87th Street. They was all over the place. All right. Okay. So this role of the black church. Or not the black church, well, the church at large, but especially the black church, because 99% of my listeners are black. Blickety black.
Well, I think that part of what you were saying before we went was that from the standpoint in terms of them being able to go into the TV stations and the media stations and demand this. I think a lot of that had to be is that they had already infiltrated these places in terms of that they already worked there. They came, they got jobs in these industries. They could see where the trend is going.
Yeah.
We don't know where the trend is going until the trend hits us.
Boom!
And then when it hits us, we don't even know really then. We don't even know that we're being hit.
We don't even know we're getting hit.
So, I mean, I think that the thing becomes from the standpoint that we need to be able to get into these places. The church has not been a place by and large to embrace progress in terms of education, in terms of technology. Remember, it was like the internet was the devil.
Yes, it was.
You know, so, you know, we were like kind of the last to kind of get on board with technology.
Yes.
You know, so, I mean, it's like we have to be able to not be afraid, to be able to not only get involved, to learn these things, not lose who we are, keep our message, and be able to influence others, I think, as well.
I agree with you, especially how the church, this taboo. Back in the day, they had the radio, that's all they allowed, all right? The TV came on the scene and they called it the one-eyed monster.
Right.
They called it the boob tube.
That's right.
All right, they said you can't, you know, don't watch this stuff.
That's right.
A cancer and all kinds of stuff will come out of that, the rays will come out of TV and kill everybody.
They did.
You see what I'm saying?
They did.
Before you know it, Pastor and everybody else was watching Fireside Chats or whatever by President Roosevelt, because it was from the radio to TV, Burns and Allen and the Molly Show and all these spaghetti westerns, whatever. They began to say, okay, maybe this TV is fine. Okay,
it's not so
bad. It's not that bad. Okay, and then the internet came on the scene, and then they went back to saying, stay away from that internet.
Right.
Okay, that became another boob tube. Okay, they said social media is going to kill us all.
Right.
All right. Okay. All right. So that's that. That's us. But see, that's a super highway. That's what the internet is. It is the new highway, byway. Yes, it is. And because that's what people are, that's where we need to be.
Exactly.
Because that's what they are.
Exactly.
A lot of these old churches are still doing radio programs thinking that they're winning people, and they ain't winning nobody.
That's true.
The only one they're winning is the guy who's charging them
to be on the air.
He's winning them their pocketbooks. Okay?
Exactly. But at the same time, the ones who the ministers that went on social media, they were like, they got bad reputations.
They sure did.
They got talked about really, really badly.
Yes, I tell my people all the time. Okay, people say, you know, why are you not up there preaching in somebody's church? Yada yada yada. I said, listen, I did that. I did that. All right. I'm so over that. I said, here's why. Yeah, I still get invited. Matter of fact, I preach Sunday at 12 noon in Kankakee.
Okay.
All right. I did the morning service. All right. So I still get called to preach, but they call me because they want somebody daring. All right. Who's going to
actually say it?
Who's going? Yep. And then they call me because they want some visitors to show up.
Okay.
And they know when they call me, I bring visitors. Okay. All right. So go ahead, use me. That's fine. I'm gonna get the word out. But here's the thing, though. I was speaking in front of 100, maybe 120, 200 maybe at the most, okay, sometimes on Sunday, depending on how big your church is. But the night before, when I do maybe my Romance in the Park, or if I'm on the Urban Broadcast Media Show, okay, or if I'm doing the Sir Walter Jones Show at home in my home office, okay, I can get a couple thousand people watching at one time.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? So what's my trade-off? Speaking in front of 100 and 120 people at your church versus 2,000 people just the night before.
Exactly.
And it's not just Chicago, but it's worldwide.
Worldwide.
Okay, so
that's what makes the difference.
So I'm not getting excited because you allow me to preach in your pulpit.
Right.
Well,
I understand.
Your so-called pulpit. Although you call it the house of God, I'm not sure how it became yours. All right, yeah, I ain't saying nothing. I ain't know nothing. Okay, don't give me
Don't
fire.
get started.
You see what I'm saying? So I don't really care about how much the church complains about this, complains about that. When they're not in the street, many of them not in the street. There's a whole lot of them that are. I know some ministries are doing wonderful work in the street, but there's too many that are not doing any work in the street.
Right.
And they keep bringing this word evangelizing, but they don't. They do the but they don't do the walking.
Exactly. And then it's even beyond that. I mean, that in itself, that's an issue. But even beyond that, a lot of times when the street comes through the door, they're not prepared. When the street walks through the door, a lot of times they want to put them in the back.
Yes.
They want to make sure nobody sees them, nobody messes up their sound bite or their video and whatnot, make them look bad. So, you know, a lot of times they've been put in the back. So that's not welcoming. You're not even bearing up the message you're supposed to be preaching and supporting. You know, so yeah.
Well, let's read some of these comments here, because I ain't forgot about y'all. I promise y'all I didn't. Well, somebody said, Kendrick Scale says radio is dead. Okay. Well, and I think he meant for the church. Not for R&B music, okay, and not for internet radio like talk shows, but as far as church and them doing their Sunday morning shows, it died.
Okay.
It really did die. It died. There's a few people who are still doing it, but it really did die. Joe Hill says that much of Jesus' dialogues was dual in nature. He's right. While he may have been addressing the leaders, he spoke to them in front of the Jewish people. Right again. Knowing the leaders' hearts were hardened, but the people may hear and believe. He's right. Joe, I don't know if you're still here, but man, you right. I almost said white because he is white. So he white right.
He white right.
Okay. Angela Elaine says, those in the church have been down not to be true believers. Okay. We know how to perform and talk. Outsiders or the unsaved admit they need God and depend on Him for their strength. And she's right. Darlene Bradley says, but even the ones in the church need God too.
Of course.
We have to realize we will always need God or out of the church. Minister Dwight Manning says the role of the called out assembly is to keep the commandments.
Absolutely.
True. And walk in the covenant.
Absolutely.
True. The church today is not biblical in the first place. 90% of the teaching is indoctrinating, called religion. The Bible teaches a lifestyle that's taught by the Most High. Yah, bless you, frat one, loved in Yeshua's name. This is Minister Manny.
Shalom,
yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yes. So you have to understand certain people use certain terms to reference God. And in many cases they are correct. A lot of times we use terms that we use it because we heard someone else use it. Because believe it or not, and I know we get in trouble on this show, Jehovah is not actually the proper
I've
word
heard
to
you
use.
say that.
Yes, Jehovah is not the term to use. Actually, it's he's using it right. Yahweh. Absolutely. Yeah. Yahweh or Elohim.
Hey.
Absolutely. Come on, man. Yes. You want to hear the real names of Christ? Talk to a Jew, a Hebrew, talk to someone Mideastern. They'll tell you the real name.
Where did Jehovah come from then?
It's a hybrid. Yeah, men saw two things and they put it together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like y'all say, God, take your sin and throw it in a sea of forgetfulness.
Okay.
That's not biblical. But the principle is correct. What we've done was we took two scriptures. He forgives. He don't remember your sin. That's one scripture. Then throw it in the sea is another scripture altogether.
Wow. So you just kind of splice it together.
We put them together.
Okay.
And made it and so people actually was raised to believe that there actually is a sea
of forgetfulness.
Like the Red Sea or something.
Right.
That God did that only anyway.
Wow.
You get the concept?
I got it.
Yeah, so that's what Jehovah comes from.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I
just
gotcha.
the man-made thing, and I'm careful with how I try to correct people because if that's their feeling and interpretation or that's their relationship with God, I don't mess with it.
I understand.
I don't mess with it.
I understand.
People's relationship needs to,
you need to evolve on your own pace.
Yeah, on your own pace.
Know, as you seek Him. I
Absolutely.
believe as long as someone is seeking that, He said that we shall find Him.
Yes.
So, to me, the greatest thing is for us to continue to seek.
Continue to see. Right. So when you, especially new Christians, I got babes in Christ out here. People who go to my YouTube channel and you'll see people call me Pastor Jones, Pastor Sir, what have you. I'm their only pastor. I'm the only one they know.
I believe that.
So I have to be careful.
Definitely.
What I teach.
Absolutely.
Because it goes out there across the world on social media. And I'm going to be held responsible.
Because you never know who's taking advantage of that.
You don't know.
Whose mind is, so you want truth to go forth.
Yes, you do.
You want truth to go forth.
You do.
You don't want to be, you don't want to have to be responsible for sending out error or not being sure of what you're sending out.
That's true. So if you're going to, so these shows, especially if I'm doing something on biblical principles or what have you, or some kind of religious belief, I have to use scripture. I've got to be able to read it and interpret it the best way I can. Allow the Holy Ghost to help us to do that.
Absolutely.
Without using our own, leaning on our own understanding of it. Okay.
Exactly.
So sometimes you see me digging into Matthew Henry and Dakes, okay, and Jameson, Fawcett, and Brown, and all these concordances in the Bible. Okay, I can go through all of them. Okay, before I hit that record button, because I want to know what all the other scholars are saying.
Absolutely.
And then I don't always agree with all of them because they are men too. You know that.
Right.
All right. So they're not always correct because they call themselves scholars. Like I'm not always correct because I call myself sir. Okay. Yes.
Well, no, I think that the dichotomy is, for me, is that, for example, Church of God in Christ, they provide a background whereas they raised people like you. Sure. They raised you in the knowledge of the word. They raised you, and what I mean by that, you studied the word. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that in terms of that, and in terms of different ministries that have done that, it's just that in light of that too, it just seems a little confusing to me is that how we could yet be, not saying you, but how we could get the church in itself, how we could get off, how it became what it is.
Yes.
You know, in spite of that, it's kind of like from the standpoint, we want you to learn, we want you to do this, but then they want to control the narrative.
Yes.
But it's not in the direction it's supposed to go.
True. That's true. Not in the direction it's supposed to go. Okay, so that's true. On our show, we try to bring you the history of where the church really came from, or whatever the title topic is. Okay, we got to look at the beginning on why is the church here, who is the church, and what is her responsibility, not just in our family lives, but also in the lives of the people outside who don't know. All right, we look at the visitation that Abram had. Okay, with God himself. Okay, we look at what God told Abram to do. He told him to leave his family.
He did.
For a reason, because the family could be the very ones that could cause you to lose out on everything. All right? So he said, leave them, but he brought Lot with him.
Right.
His own nephew.
Right.
Okay, that was a problem.
Right.
And as long as Lot was with them, they began to become wealthy and buy land and what have you. Okay, the both of them, and then they got too big. And Abraham said, you know, this town is too big for the both of them.
Right.
He said, so you go over there, you pitch your tent over there, and I'll go over here. All right, and so they agreed. And when Lot finally walked away, then God spoke to Abram. All right. Okay. Why? Because Lot was in the way. Right. God told him, don't leave everybody. All right. And I often talk to y'all, tell y'all about the meaning of these names. And Lot simply means veil.
Wow.
Okay, his name means veil.
So when he left, the veil was open.
You see what I'm saying? Right. So as long as that boy was,
Amen.
God couldn't speak because Lot was in the way.
Wow.
All right, so he moved out of the way, and then
I didn't know that.
And God says, "Ooh, I thought that boy would never
leave."
All right, let me talk to you, Abram. He said, "Look in the sky. You see all the stars? Ooh, that's gonna be your seed. That's gonna be your inheritance right there. Look at the sand. Can you count it? I can't. Well, that's gonna be your inheritance. All right.
Right.
And so God established the Hebrew people, the Israelites, the Jerusalem, and the seed of Abraham. We call it the blessings of Abraham. Okay, that's another story. Okay, I'm gonna go to this break right quick for Urban Broadcast Media, and keep talking to my Facebook and YouTube family over here. So on the Jones Show.
Wow, I didn't know the Lot meant veil.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of the names that are in Hebrew meant something, which is the reason why God changed names. Added names or deleted names because of the name, the meaning of the name. Right. Because Abram was changed to Abraham.
Exactly.
Sarah. Okay. Jacob to Israel. See what I'm saying? Now Paul had both names, but when God referred to him, he would call him by Paul eventually, even though his name was Saul.
Right.
He didn't change the name because he had dual citizenship.
Oh, okay.
So he was both Hebrew and he was Roman. Okay, so he did have both citizenship, so his name wasn't changed. But God would refer to him as Paul.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
After a while. Because at the beginning, he said, Saul, Saul, why you persecute me? And after that, he started calling him Paul.
Right.
Because he looked at, now he done shifted.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
So God changes your name depending on the shift.
Depending on the shift.
See,
the thing is, it
messed
becomes
up.
important for us to shift.
It's
That's the
important.
thing. That's the thing. The shift.
The shift.
When we don't shift, we can be raised in tradition.
Yes.
And we can be raised in a certain mode of behavior because family is so important to us so many times. And our traditions, our family traditions are so important.
Yes.
And that also translates through our church traditions and all of that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, at a certain point, when the Holy Spirit is we kind of look at it from the standpoint, what's going on with me?
Right.
You know, because I'm not feeling this like I was once feeling it. So we become confused. Sometimes we think, well, you know, am I like, what, losing my religion? What is it? You might be losing your religion.
Yeah.
You know, but that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Because you're losing religion. It's not, you're not losing relationship. He's trying to take you someplace. He's trying to promote that shift. But in the midst of it, you're losing religion.
Right.
And while you're losing religion is a very uncomfortable position to be in because that's what we have stood on all of this time. But God is like trying to say, I want to take you here. I want to show you something different.
Take you here and show you something different. Ooh, wee. My God, today. Welcome back to the Some Other Show. I am he, and Crystal is she. Yeah, we here. Yeah, and Johanna Bright is over here on the left side. I can't let y'all see her because the beauty might cause my screen to crack, and the light that exudes from her is just too illuminating to my soul. So I can't do it with her Indian hair. You see all that Indian hair she got? Lord have mercy. I don't know if she's Lakota or she's Cheyenne or I'm Cheyenne. Yes, I am. Y'all meet me at the Met, November 17th. Meet us over there, okay? Be in the front seat, okay? Peace Planter Awards. Me and the D. Curtis Randall is going to be one of the honorees that night, all right? Meet us over there, and I'll be glad to see you. And maybe I'll have my tea and crumpets with me. And we'll play tennis
and what is it?
Football.
Yeah, croquet.
Croquet, yeah, there it is.
Croquet.
But play some croquet.
Yeah.
Don't bring no horses there in the church, though.
No horses, no horseshoes.
No horses allowed in the Met. Okay, yeah, in the back, yeah, though, in the back, our back is a big yard out there. Okay, so we're talking about the establishment of the church.
Okay.
Okay, God met Abraham. Okay, told Lot, get out of here. We're done with you for now.
Right.
You ain't, you know, we'll do something with you.
Right.
Because Lot's descendants continue.
Right.
Still here today, believe it or not. Yeah.
Wow.
You don't want to meet them though.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah. It's a whole lot of them. Get it?
Stop it.
Yeah. And so Abraham had a child. Okay. Abraham had Isaac. Okay, Isaac, and the story of them and their wives is so similar because Abraham married a relative. Yeah, they went somewhere, and the king says, "Ooh, I want that woman."
Right.
Yeah, and Abraham said, "Tell him you
my
must."
sister.
Yeah. He wasn't really lying. He just told a soft truth.
Right.
He wasn't lying. Okay.
Right.
And the same thing happened to his son.
Okay.
Same thing. Yes. Rebecca.
Okay.
Yeah, fine. See, they marry fine women like y'all. You and Johanna.
True.
Yeah, just fine. Okay. Okay. And then I didn't know y'all was Hebrew. It's amazing. Y'all Hebrew. I thought y'all was Indian. Y'all Hebrew too. Yeah. And so and then Isaac. Okay. And then Jacob. Jacob came on the scene.
Okay.
Jacob was responsible for giving us all these tribes.
Okay. Absolutely.
All right. Okay. He went and worked for his uncle.
Right.
Okay.
And
One had a lazy eye.
Don't leave Leah's eye alone.
One had a lazy eye.
Leave Leah's eye alone. It had a mind of its own.
It had a sight of its own.
It had a wandering spirit. Leave it alone.
Yeah. She put 5 fingers up in front of Leah. Said, how many fingers I got? She said, well, I see 6. Okay. All right. So her and then Rachel. All right, then he had to work an extra 7 years, okay? Okay, we know the story.
Right.
All right, then one he loved, the other one, well, she was okay. She was good and bad.
Okay.
All right? apparently,
Okay.
because she kept having babies for him.
Well, she was fertile.
Yeah, she was
She was
fertile.
fruitful.
He apparently had to do what he had to do,
Mhm.
okay, to be fruitful and multiply.
Absolutely.
So with both of them, he did what he did. Now
Mhm.
one didn't give him as many, but that other one that he kept saying, I'm gonna have this baby and he gonna love me.
Right.
Okay, so she kept having babies for him, and he never really did love
No,
her
but-
like she
right.
wanted. All right.
Right.
Okay. Then these boys were born not just from those two marriages, but also from the two
The concubines.
okay,
Right.
the
Servants,
servants, maidservants. Okay, all right. And so one of the boys slept with the maidservant.
Mhm.
Nasty demon. Okay.
Was that Reuben?
Reuben
Yeah.
slept with it, and then he lost the birthright.
Right.
All right. And then in walked Levi.
Mhm.
Okay. And his brother, and they went out there killing everybody
Mhm.
because somebody had raped their sister.
Right.
Died.
Right.
Okay, so Levi and the other boy lost the birthright, and then
Right.
he went to Judah.
Right.
All right, Judah means praise,
Mhm.
and Judah is where Jesus Christ comes from, that
Yes.
lineage. All right, so
Yes.
thank God he went to him.
Amen.
All right, he leaped through truth. That Judah,
Yes.
bad brother. Shut your mouth.
Love Judah.
I'm just
Love
talking about
praise.
Judah. That him. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then the rest of the children were born.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Then they spread out.
Okay.
All right. Some call them lost tribes. Y'all call them whatever you want to.
Mhm.
All right. When you get to the book of Isaiah, Isaiah says some unusual things about somebody who's going to come.
Right.
Unto us a child is born.
Right.
Unto the Jew.
Right.
This son is given.
Right.
Now this government, the
Mhm.
Roman Empire,
Mhm.
is going to be upon his shoulders.
Okay.
Okay, now, but here's his name.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. All right.
Marvelous.
Counselor.
Yes.
Mighty God.
Mhm.
Everlasting Father. That means a long time.
Mhm.
Okay, Prince of Peace.
Peace.
All right,
Yes.
like this flyer here, peace.
Yes.
Peace plan the Lord. Yeah.
Okay.
See how I slipped that in there?
Yeah, you did.
This is
That's
a Walter
how-
John
that's
show.
what
We
you
make
did.
shoot,
I
man. We
saw
don't get
that.
paid for this kind of stuff. Okay,
Mhm.
all right. Okay, that's him.
Mhm.
And as the Jews would read that book, they didn't know who they were talking about.
You know, who
is
it's
this
gonna
guy?
be.
Who
Right.
is it going to be?
Mhm.
Okay, they couldn't figure it out.
Right.
All right, and then the prophecy came through Joseph and Mary.
Mhm.
All right, the angel came and said, "You're gonna have a baby."
Right.
All right.
Right.
But oops, no man laid with it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So who does baby come from?
Came from God.
So they had to
Came
turn
from the
on.
Lord.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
they turned on more reports.
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh, Lord.
Got a DNA
Yeah,
test.
got the
Okay.
DNA test.
And age pretty much says Joseph is not the father.
That's right.
All right, so Mary ran out of there, did that little dance.
Yeah.
Joseph did that little dance on stage. Okay. Anyway, that was in the other book.
Okay.
It's a hidden book.
The
you
Book
know.
of Maury.
The Book of Maury.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Bam.
Okay.
Now we have Jesus Christ on the scene.
Absolutely.
But here's still a problem though, because when he was born and when he still didn't mess with you Gentiles.
No.
He didn't fool around with y'all that much.
No, he didn't.
Matter of fact, the woman came and was bothering them.
Mhm. A
And
couple of different times.
come on. And the
At
disciples,
least.
yeah, you already know.
Yeah.
The disciples said, send her away.
Yeah.
Okay, she
There's
just,
a one that he called, he was talking about the dogs can't eat, dogs
Yes.
don't eat at the table, yeah.
and
So,
she
yeah.
made an amazing comeback.
Mhm.
Okay, because he
Every
blew
time.
shade. Okay?
Yeah,
And she
she
said,
did.
well, the dog, I'll take the crumbs.
I'll take the prawns.
Okay? And he was
Wow.
amazed by that.
Yeah. That was
Wow. But
Yeah.
he tested her.
Yeah,
Guess who else he tested? The disciples.
okay.
Yes. See,
Sure,
there was a method
Mhm,
to
his
Jesus' sayings. Because
Mhm.
it seemed like it was so inappropriate
Right.
for our Savior to call a woman a dog.
Mm-hmm.
But it's dogged by what we know it today.
Mm-hmm.
Dogged by what they knew 2,000 years ago was a different connotation.
Okay, I'm not
Yeah.
familiar.
I know you're not.
Okay.
Most Christians are not. Okay.
Mhm.
That's why it's so important to read the Bible in Hebrew
Mhm.
and in
Wow,
Greek
okay.
and in Aramaic. We read it in English.
In English.
And the English
In the different
language.
translations of English. Yeah.
And our
okay.
English language we stole from everybody around the world.
Yeah.
America don't have much of original.
No, but that's why it's the melting pot.
It's a melting
You know,
pot of
so,
unoriginality.
Yeah, it's a pot of stew.
Right. See what I'm saying? So if you look in the dictionary under all our words,
Mhm.
they say derived from
Right, that's true. Latin.
Italy, Latin,
Mhm.
Rome,
Greek.
Greek,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah. Everything.
South Africa.
Yeah.
Okay, we ain't got nothing. All right. Okay, so because of that, our words keep changing. We got so many rules.
Mhm.
Then we think that this word has always meant this word,
Mhm.
but it did not.
Right.
I mean, we mentioned the word gay earlier.
Mhm.
I used to say gay a lot in the 70s. I was gay.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but in the late 80s, I couldn't say that anymore.
No.
Okay?
No.
It just means something different.
Exactly.
All right? So, dog was something else. Okay, so anyway, Jesus still sent them out, not to you. He sent them, he said, go out to the house of Israel, to your people.
Right.
Only your people.
I gotta ask, what did dog mean then?
Dog was almost like...
Infidel or something?
Yeah. You're close.
Okay.
We use words that are, you know what y'all say, my nigga? You my nigga. It's derogatory to them. But to some, it's like, it's a term of endearment.
Right, exactly.
It, we used to call Hispanics Chicanos.
Right.
Remember that? You better not call them that today. So he called her Chicano.
Ooh, okay. Okay.
Okay? It just didn't mean the same as it means today.
Okay.
Okay. Now, anyway, I'm not gonna go there. This is a family show. I was
Okay.
gonna go there, but Johanna's looking at me funny, so I gotta go south for this, okay? All right, he sent them out 2 by 2.
Okay.
They went out to their own people.
Okay.
And they came back and testified of what happened. All right? And then he went away. He said, I'm gonna send the comforter.
Right.
Okay? The Holy Ghost came on them people. They received it. Okay? And then in walks the Apostle Paul.
Right.
So we quote from the Apostle Paul more than anybody
That's true.
in the Bible. Christians do.
Yes.
Why do you think we do that?
I'm not sure. I would guess because he had the revelation of Christ, even though he didn't walk with him back then. I mean, that would be my first guess.
Okay. All right.
He was given the revelation of Christ.
Okay.
You know, so he wasn't.
What
one of the-
revelation? Well, because the other disciples were given a
of
revelation.
Jesus. I mean, well, see, the other disciples walked with Jesus. You know. Yeah. You know, so they
What she
walked.
say? What she say? Okay, go ahead.
But I mean, they walked with Jesus, and then Paul, who hadn't walked with Jesus, but Jesus revealed himself to him.
Yes.
You know, and he had that whole experience where he was thrown off of his donkey.
No.
What was that? Which
He
one was
just
that?
fell.
He just fell. Okay, he just
We
fell.
we inserted the animal with
Okay,
this.
my bad. My bad. That's where.
Yeah, we inserted that.
Yeah.
But you see how that happens with us.
Very easily. And
There's so many
much.
stories.
Yeah.
There's so many stories that we've made up in Scripture.
Okay, but he did go blind.
Yes.
He was blind. He was blind for 3 days. And Ananias came and the Lord exactly.
Yes.
The Lord sent Ananias to come and to pray for Saul. And when he came to pray for Saul, then his sight was restored. And then that was how he came to. He was converted.
Converted.
By that whole experience.
So my question to you after this break is, why did Jesus have to use somebody else now to minister to Paul? If Jesus found Paul and did this work, why can't Jesus finish the work himself? Why he had to send for Ananias to minister to him?
That's a good question.
All right, let's see if we can apply that for today.
Okay.
All right, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Oh man, it's
I'm
gonna
ready.
be hot and popping. Johanna gonna grab the mic too after this break.
All right.
All right, y'all, we're going to this quick break and we come back.
Hey.
Sir Walter Jones Show. Oh man, boy, you are teaching this lesson today.
Me? Oh no.
Okay,
no.
so tell me why. Since the YouTube folks and the Facebook folks over there need to hear the answer. Okay, why do you think God still needed a second person to interact with his dealings with
That's a good
Paul?
question.
I need a good answer. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not sure that I think I would kind of chalk that up to the fact that it's not up to any one person. God doesn't ascribe to any one way of doing things. That He'll do it any way that He chooses to do it. So, you know, if He wants to he had Ananias over there in the cut. You know, he said he goes over there and he upsets Ananias' world by telling him, I want you to go over here and pray for this man. It's like, do you know who he is? Do you know what he's done? You know, so it's, in other words, he's working through Saul, but he's also working through Ananias. He's also giving him an experience. Up in this place here. Like Taco Bell. So he's giving him an experience, you know, in him, you know, because it's not, you know, I would say, Lord, oh, use me, I'll be your tool, but it's not just about us being tools. It's like God will use, and he's developing us. So he's not developing us to the exclusion of, you know, anybody else. He wants all of us to have the experience in him.
Joanna?
Yes.
What do you think?
I think she's got most of it right.
Hey, most of it, huh?
Well, he was raised by his mother and his grandmother Eunice, and so he was a devout Jew. And so what he was doing, according to scripture, he was doing it in his heart. He thought that what he was doing was right according to God.
Exactly.
So he was a man after God's own heart. He was just doing it the wrong way. So that's why God stopped him on the road to Damascus, and it just halted him right there. Yeah.
Right. You're talking about Timothy.
No, she's
Paul was stopped on the road to Damascus with letters from the elders.
I'm talking about all that.
No, he was stopped, and he went blind, and he was led about for 3 days. He went to the town where Ananias lived.
I'm not talking about all that. I'm talking about his parents.
His parents?
Yeah.
His parentage? His parents?
They're saying that Eunice or whatever.
Oh, no, you're right. That was Timothy. That was Timothy.
But the rest of it is
right.
That was Timothy. But he said, but he persecuted the church.
Right.
He was the one was sending all of the Christians to the lion's den and things like that. Right. So, you know, Ananias was like, you have no idea who this man is. The guy's like, yeah, I do. That's why I'm sending him to you.
Right. But the thing,
but he was devout in what he was doing because he thought what he was doing was right.
That's the other point. If we bring that now to today, in terms of the church, you know, how many in the church are devout in terms of what they're doing, but at the same time,
they think they're right.
They think that they're right.
But they're told that they're wrong in their rightness.
Exactly.
Ooh.
See, and that's the thing. That's the thing. And I believe, and my prayer is just like we look at how God has brought us about, that if he could bring us about, he will bring others about. Because the thing is, as long as your heart is to know God, you know, he's going to bring you there. The question is, are you able to, if you have to forsake some things, if you have to lay down some things, are you willing to do it? Are you too tied up into your tradition?
And that's why he chose Paul. He wasn't tied up in tradition. He was tied up in, like David was a man after God's own heart. So Paul also was after God's own heart, but he was in the wrong dispensation doing it. So the dispensations changed, and it was the grace of God that changed him. That's how that works.
I think we found another co-host. There's only 3 of us on this thing here called the Sir Johanna's Crystal Show. That's good stuff. I mean, they added some really great stuff on YouTube, Facebook, great stuff that needs to be examined by many of us who are Christians, because I think that there's some people here who are typing who are going along with this. I think these are great answers here. Shante Charles especially says, Saul spent over a decade being trained, then presented to the other apostles. Okay, this was what Johanna said. Look at the persecution. The heart of him. He did what he thought was
right. He thought that that's what he was supposed to do.
He was a perfect candidate. But he's also being trained, believe it or not.
Right.
Saul. Joe says she just described ISIS. One of y'all, I don't know which one you talking about.
You said what?
One of y'all just described ISIS. Oh. It must have been an earlier comment. God didn't need Ananias. I believe it was a precursor for us. She's saying, she says, God can do anything at any time, but he still uses people. She's right. So it wasn't about God. It was about people. Exactly,
that were coming up, that he was training.
Yes. June says that she is teaching today. I knew she's teaching today. June says we are the body. We are in community. We are not an island to ourselves. Bam. Absolutely. He's building community and bearing witness to what the ecclesia is. That's Shantae right there, boy. I tell you,
All right.
she's our fact checker.
Come on now.
Welcome back to Some Other Jones Show.
Yeah.
Y'all just missed the whole Bible study, bro. We were talking about y'all was on break, listening to Alvin Washington talk about some Donald Trump stuff. I don't know, Malta, and I don't know what he was talking about, but it was good stuff. You are informed now, people. You are an informed people. All right, now you now you're listening to me, and I'm so sorry for that. Okay, we got some great comments here coming across because of the discussion we're going to about Ananias and what was his purpose, right? And I think the thing that fell heavy on us, on his purpose, was that God used him for him, Ananias. Which is one of the great things, is that the Lord does some things that seem like it makes no sense, but he did it in front of people because of the witnesses. For instance, let's see, the boy died. Jesus knew he was dead. Talking about Lazarus.
Okay.
Right? And Jesus kept doing what he's doing somewhere else. Right. Even though that boy's body was being rotten in the grave.
Yeah.
All right?
Let it get fragrant.
Yep. You see what I'm saying? Mega and her rosis set in. Okay. And he got stiff. He was stiff-necked for real. Okay. I'm talking about Lazarus. All right. Jesus stayed away for over 3 days. Okay, then he came back to the tomb, and the sisters were like, if you had been here, my brother
he never would have died.
Would not have died. And the Bible says, then Jesus cried. He wept. Even though he knew he was getting ready to raise that boy.
Right.
But yet he still cried. Why did he cry if he knew he was going to raise the boy?
Did he cry? Maybe because he couldn't cry because they didn't understand. Was it that from the standpoint that they were grieved, saying, well, if you had been here, he never would have died, but he stayed away purposely, making sure that he died.
Yes.
And not only that he died, that it was long enough so that it wouldn't be confused with anything that he was going to do. So he intended for him to die. Yes. You know, because he was going to use that whole situation, but they didn't understand. They thought that it was going to, they thought that, it's too late. You know, that even though the things that he had been teaching them, he had taught them that he was the resurrection and life, but at the same time, they hadn't had an example of that. You know, how else were they going to get an example of that? How else were they going to know what that actually meant? You're right. That's part A of your answer. Okay. There's a part B. Okay. The Jews were a faithless generation, and it got on Jesus' nerves. Especially the disciples, they just got on his nerves. Time and time again. Time and time again. And because Jesus was both man and God, he wasn't 50% man, 50% God. That's a freak of nature. You can't be half pregnant. Right. Okay? So he was 100% man. And 100% okay? God. See what I'm saying? Yes. So he had the humanity or the frailty of man. That's true. So he cried like a man. Your father ever beat you and say this gonna hurt me more than it hurt you? You see what I'm saying? I literally had to chastise my children and I cried because it hurt me that I had to do this. You get this? You know what I'm saying? Okay. So he cried, I believe, for a couple of reasons. One, your reason there, but that wasn't the first time he cried. The Bible says again he cried again when he walked and saw Jerusalem from afar and started crying. He was weeping over Jerusalem. Probably for a few reasons. Right. Okay, what's getting ready to happen to Jerusalem, or what has already happened to Jerusalem, or this faithless generation of Jerusalem. But my point of bringing Lazarus up is he stayed away, and if a body is, if you don't, Jesus knew that the I guess you could say the culture of those people, they believe that your soul hovers over you, your spirit hovers over you for the first, second, and third day. Oh. And if a body miraculously gets up, then the healer didn't do it. Okay, the man just woke up. Right. So Jesus knew. He waited. And he waited for that. Him out. So he waited out their cultural beliefs. Right. Okay, then here's what he said. Here's how we know. And then when he prayed to the Father, he says, Father, for those who are watching me, and I'm paraphrasing, for the ones who are watching and looking at this, Lazarus, get up. Wow. Okay? So he did it for the people who were looking. Not so much
sake of Lazarus. Because, you know, eventually Lazarus died again.
Right.
At some point.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And there was no coming back from that one.
There was no come back for that one, all right? Okay? I mean, if Jesus wanted, well, Jesus was already gone, okay?
Right.
All right, so right there, I said that because I'm bringing up your earlier point. The whole point of Ananias, the whole point of Jesus even cursing the tree, the fig tree. I mean, cursed,
Right.
okay?
Right.
He did, a lot of that stuff he did it in the presence of people for them.
Right.
So I believe that God used Ananias for Ananias' sake and for Paul's sake as well.
Right.
Because then Paul understood that someone else that is needed.
Is needed and involved in that. It's not what's just about him.
You see?
And I think Paul needed that lesson anyway, because remember, he needed the thorn in his side.
Yes, he did.
You know, so
Yes,
I mean,
did.
he
Come
needed that
on,
anyway.
come on.
So yeah.
And what did he do with that lesson? When he went on his missionary journey, he had somebody by his side. Okay,
Absolutely.
He had Silas. Okay, and he, of course, before him and Peter, kind of, you know, he had these people. Then he brought in Titus and then Timothy, all these people. So he and then Aquila, Priscilla, and Phoebe, and all these and the other women. Okay, so he knew I can't do this by myself.
Right.
If God's going to use Ananias to wake me up, then I can bring these other people who's got the gift. All right. So how God says, how could they hear without a preacher?
Absolutely.
And how can they preach except they be sent? All right. So that I think that's your part B.
Okay.
I'll
take that.
Yeah, I take it too. Touched with the feelings of our infirmities. Joe Hill says, "Bam." Joe
Bam, Joe. Okay.
Joe was he's not just.
Where is Joe from? Joe need to come on
Joe
in here.
on top of the hill today.
Uh-oh.
Joe's from they call it Sin City.
Oh boy.
Yeah, he a Vegas boy.
Okay.
But the boy is smart.
Okay.
You hear me?
All right.
Joe crack jokes a lot and he play around.
But him smart.
But him
smart.
is smart.
Him's important.
Him is
kind.
He is kind. He's pretty potent, and he know the word. That's that right there. Okay. So my question to you before we went on that break was, so why do we quote from the Apostle Paul more so than we do any other place in Scripture? Did you answer it?
I thought I did. I may not have.
Okay.
I did.
Okay. What did you say?
I said, what I said was that because the disciples walked with Christ.
Okay.
Paul did not walk with Christ in the same way that the disciples had, but he was revealed.
Sure.
Christ was revealed to Paul after his death and resurrection. So it was, I would say, even a sign of how maybe we are to also walk with him.
Okay.
So it was a sign of the new, I would say, I don't know if I could say covenant, but the new life that is in Christ, that, you know, that we are to be led by him, you know, as opposed to those who were privileged enough to have walked with him.
Okay. All right. But you also got to look at the discussion that Jesus had with Paul when he did see him.
Okay.
He said, I'm going to send you to a certain people. That's y'all.
Us.
Gentiles.
Yes, that's right. Okay.
So
it was a whole new thing. It was a new ball game.
Yes.
Because the Jews couldn't go.
Well,
I mean, not that they couldn't go, but I mean, from the standpoint, they had all of these connotations about who the Gentiles and who all the other people were.
That's good, right?
You know,
there.
so
yes.
Even when we go back to Peter and when he went to Cornelius, when God had given him the dream, or the vision.
That takes a drink right there, y'all. That takes a drink right there.
When he had given him the vision,
I'm pouring,
then he, you know, he was like thinking that couldn't be God, because he's telling me to eat all these unclean things.
Right.
So, you know, they didn't understand that. Somebody once was teaching about how they were so indoctrinated in their Jewish culture that the whole idea of even knocking at a Gentile's door was so, you know, contaminating to them that they wouldn't have done it. Paul, in other words, Peter would not have done it had it not been for God even having him to do that. He, out of his own volition, he never would have. If he had somebody say, go to the Gentiles, he wouldn't have, not me,
nope,
I'm not going.
I ain't going.
You're not going to make me go.
I ain't going. See, and that's a good point. If you look at the story of the Good Samaritan, it's a perfect example. Jesus talking about the Good Samaritan and Samaria. Samaritan they're like half Jew. They're not even looked to as, they just like like your half brother. He ain't really my brother. He just my play brother.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what the Samaritans were. So when Jesus brought up the parable of the Good Samaritan, he says this man got beat up on the roadside. Okay, I got to try to remember the story. He got beat up on the roadside and he was left for dead.
Yeah. Okay.
But he mentioned the people who passed
Him by.
And the one who passed him by, I think, was a priest, a Levite. Okay,
Right.
These were children of Israel.
Right.
Upper echelon. They passed them by.
They were in a position to help,
But the Samaritan who you hated went and found the man.
Absolutely.
Okay, and made sure that he was taken care of.
Right.
He said, and he told some people to take care of. He says, and if you need any more, I'll send you some more.
Right.
Okay. So Jesus was talking to a stiff-necked people who only believed that the kingdom of God was only to them.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and it seems like though Jesus enabled them because when he sent them out, he only sent them to the house of Israel. Ooh-wee. Now, a good atheist would fight me on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's a reason because you have to know. I think Johanna brought up dispensation.
Okay.
You got to kind of know dispensation. But Jesus came directly to them, but indirectly for us.
Okay.
Because while he was on the earth, he didn't mess around with us.
Right.
It was straight for them.
Right.
Because he had to come to fulfill the promise. Number one, he had to come to not so much get rid of the law, but to fulfill the law, the Mosaic law.
Exactly.
He had to do it. No Gentile could do it.
Right.
So he had to be with
his
people to fulfill it and to end it. Okay.
But also in John where it says that for God so loved the world. You know, he didn't just say God so loved Israel alone. You know, so I mean a lot of times when people are like, oh well, you know, just Israel, God didn't just love Israel, he wanted for the world to be able to have the opportunity for salvation and relationship with him. A lot of times I think we look at salvation as just the end goal, but it's not just salvation, it's a relationship with him. All encompassing, wonderful, wondrous relationship with him.
Yes, there it is. You have the answer. Hey Mikey, he likes it. Okay? So you're right.
Okay.
Now here's the thing.
Okay.
Jesus had to fulfill the promise that God made to the children of Israel.
Yes.
That you're going to be my people forever.
Right. Forever.
All right? Forever.
Forever.
He sends his son to put a stamp on it.
Yes.
Okay? It's like redeeming your life insurance.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Okay.
All right? Jesus came, made a payoff.
Okay.
And he went away. He says, now, to the rest of the world, though, I'm going to send you somebody.
Okay.
Okay? I'm going to send you the Apostle Paul. He'll come, and he'll be the bishop of y'all.
Okay.
That's why we quote from Paul a lot, and that's why he wrote most of the New Testament.
Right.
Because he went to the Gentile. But he also that's why he had dual citizenship. Because if he was only to the Gentile, them Jews would not have listened to him.
That's true.
You get it?
Yeah.
That's why he had Timothy circumcised, because Timothy, like Johanna was saying, she was speaking of Paul, but she meant Timothy, whose mother and grandmother, Eunice. Okay, they were Jewish, but Timothy had a Roman father, a Greek father.
Okay.
So you're known by who your father is, not who your mama is.
Okay.
So because he would come from a Greek father,
He was considered Greek.
and the Jews wouldn't allow him in the temple.
Ah.
So how is he going to evangelize with the Apostle Paul in the temple when they won't even allow him in there?
Wow.
So what did he do? He had to get circumcised.
Okay.
Because the Jews felt that
If you weren't circumcised.
if you're going to come over
can't
here,
say nothing.
we got to cut you.
Right.
Okay? We got to cut you. That's why, remember I told you Jacob's daughter was raped?
Right,
Okay?
right.
Dinah? But the brothers said, Simeon and Levi,
Yes.
they was like, okay, we'll let you marry her, but
But-
your whole clan,
Has to be circumcised.
there it is.
But they did it because
Oh,
they
they
just
did.
wanted to get them when they were down.
They
wanted to take them.
Yes, sir. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So there you have that story, all right? So the Apostle Paul came, and then you brought up Cornelius and the whole Peter. Peter was stubborn,
Right.
even after the whole denying Jesus 3 times. Still, I think he was stubborn the rest of his life. Okay, but yet he finally went over to Cornelius' house.
Right.
Us.
Well, I mean, and when we say stubborn, I mean, he wanted to uphold that which he thought was true. You know, so that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be able to uphold that which he thought was true.
Yes.
He had already denied him. So, you know, he didn't want to make that mistake because the Lord had restored him now. So, you know, he's had all of these wondrous experiences in the Lord. He did not want to deny him again. So he was kind of, I think, entrenched in what it was. So, you know, he wouldn't make that mistake again.
He wouldn't make that mistake again. That's a good point. Joe Hill's being smart again.
Uh-oh, what did Joe say?
Joe Hill's on the hill again. He says Paul was always a part of the plan. He was. Because Jesus let him persecute for all them years. Okay?
Yeah.
When Jesus said, my sheep know my name, but I have sheep that are not yet part of the fold.
Oh, that's a good point, Joe.
I'm telling you, Joe on the hill. He was describing Paul's ministry.
Beautiful, Joe.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. He I think he's king of the hill there. Yeah, he helping us out. So that's why we call him here. Okay, now, then, the role of the church. Look at how the Apostle Paul addressed the church of that time, the first century. Okay, how he talked to the Romans and those in Ephesus, the Galileans. Okay, he talked to them in a certain kind of way because they was full of misconduct.
True.
And some of them were so nasty that he said, y'all doing stuff that's not even named among
Right.
Sometimes, some of them Jews at that time.
Right.
Y'all had land with your
Y'all doing
fathers,
too extra.
your father's wives and stuff is just nasty.
Y'all do nasty.
Right. But then he addressed the church. In many cases, he addressed the church. Okay? And he helped us understand church culture and how to forgive one another.
True.
Okay? Can you think of some of the things that, some of the lessons we learned through scripture, through the apostles? Or not just him, but through other apostles in the New Testament as it pertains to the church, government, and structure, what to do in case this happens, what not to do? Some things you can maybe think of?
The thing that popped into my mind is, I guess, the sort of the male-female gender roles.
Okay.
In terms of when they were talking about, in terms of women speaking church and to not, to ask their husbands at home. I think that part of that, I heard a teaching once where it was saying that what was going on societally at that particular time regarding women and why he addressed it that way had a lot to do with, not from the standpoint of putting women down or silencing women, but at the time it was a very confusing time, and women were also trying to I guess get established. They were trying to become, because they were always considered second-class citizens, so they were trying to come up to a place where, you know, they were not as considered second class. I heard from the standpoint that prostitutes had more authority, more freedom than, say, a wife did.
You did.
You know, so they were trying to at least be able to have what kind of freedoms they were able to have. So that ended up kind of trickling into the church, and I guess women kind of brought some confusion in there. And he's like, look, y'all just ask your husbands at home. Don't bring that with you.
Yes.
So I think that that would be one of the things I would think of.
That's a good point. You brought up I think you brought up one of the most controversial segments in scripture in Christian history.
Okay.
Women in church, baptizing, paying tithe, and I think there might be one more, clothing, of course women wear pants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, those four, if not more, are the most controversial subjects that's always repeated over and over again. And the reason why people fight over this stuff because they don't understand the culture of the time,
right?
Which you brought up. All right, the culture and the people that he was talking to. When we don't read the Bible and study the culture, it's hard.
It's very hard
for us
because we're thinking in terms of our culture today.
Always. So when we're not making we're not making the correlation between what's happening then and what's happening now, then it's very confusing. It's confusing. I'm gonna go to this. I think the last break of the evening, at least on my show, And we'll come back with the great Crystal O'Doul-Wharton. I might have that.
Close, very close.
I was close. So the jump show. Yeah. Okay. We went around the block and back again.
Okay.
Thank God the door's open so we get some cool air in here.
Oh, yeah.
Get a cool air.
Yeah.
It may not be cool, but cooler.
Yeah.
Okay. So we gave you Bible history. Well, we gave them Bible history. But now we got to find out, and I think we got to go full circle because at the beginning of the show you talked about the different things.
The different spheres of influence.
Spheres of influence. All right, now let's go back.
Okay.
The different spheres of influence.
Okay.
All right, give me that list again.
Okay.
The different spheres
just
of
to make
influence.
sure that I did not forget anything.
That the church
had them
responsible for.
Exactly. Our family.
Our family.
Okay, our family. That's a very important sphere. Then there's also religion/faith.
Religion/faith.
Okay, education.
Education.
Government/law.
Okay.
Okay, media. And with that, let's put in there news and commentary. And then there's arts, entertainment, and business and economics.
Business and economics. Okay, you saying we should have a presence in all of that?
We should have, not only have a presence, I believe we also need to be able to promote. Because I think we have, there to a large degree, there is a presence in much of that, but are we promoting the right message? I mean, a lot of times, we get into certain things and we just kind of go along with the flow. We're not there, we're not promoting anything. We're just kind of going along and floating along with that. But we don't have, because we're not promoting anything, we don't have any influence, we don't have any power.
We don't have any power. Because we have no influence.
We have no influence.
We have no power.
We have no power.
So then we begin to grab a hold of the coattail of those who got power.
Exactly.
Who are non-Christians.
Exactly.
Or at least acting like it.
Exactly.
Man, that's deep. So I wanna touch on those one by one.
Okay.
Okay. Your first one was family.
Right.
All right. I'm coming back on that Jonathan Reynolds. Give me a shout out or write down there health on your list. Health. Shantae says health.
Yeah, I don't even know how that one's done.
Yeah. We that happens when you're intelligent like that.
Of course, naturally.
Welcome back to the Soul John Show. This is the last, I say about a good 25 minutes we're going to be on this air here to talk about this stuff here about the role of the church in the world. Okay? That list. Family. Number 2.
Religion
and faith. Number 3.
Education.
Education. Number 4. Government and law. That's together. Yes. And
media. News and commentary.
News and commentary.
Arts.
And
entertainment.
Number 7. Yes.
Business economics.
Business economics number 8.
Health.
Health is number 9. Thank you to Shantae Charles for that addition there.
Thank you, Shantae.
Thank you, girl. I'll fact check. Yeah, that girl's small. She's small.
She's small.
And she's what?
Small. She kind. And she's impotent.
Yes, she is. Oh yeah. She's a mover and a shaker.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Family. The role of the church in family lives is for us to do what with the family? Show the family what? And whose family?
Basically how to live.
Our family?
Our family beginning. Because we have to be examples.
Examples.
You know, so when we're not examples, then we're just part of whatever is going on. We're part of the world.
Okay.
When we're not an example. But we are to be, for example, I believe from the standpoint of, we should have family units. I mean, we're in a day and age where marriage is almost frowned upon.
It is.
You know, but we're supposed to be married, have a family, raise our children. You know, I mean, people have been made to feel bad because they want to get married. Women, it's like, you single, you want to be married, you like, no, honey, you just be yourself. You don't need a man. You know, you can do it on you. That's not promoting our family, because now then you have children who have no father.
Yeah.
Okay, so when they have no father, then they have no influence, that male influence, which our children are supposed to have. The male children are deprived of that, and then they're suffering. The female children are deprived of that, so that they are suffering.
You doing the dance, man?
Yes.
Balance.
Balance.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it has to be the proper balance. And then from the standpoint, when we get into family, we also get back into that whole mystical thing of submission.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from the standpoint of, a woman supposed to be submissive? You know, yeah, a woman should submit, but at the same time, I think that a male also submits to the wife. They submit to the unit.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not about a lone cowboy sort of syndrome. You know, you're a family. You have to, no part is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yes.
You know, so from the standpoint, but a man also, because I believe God has placed certain things that are inherent to men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Not that they're not inherent to females, to women, but they're inherent to men in terms of being the head of the house.
Yes.
You know, when you're a single woman, and you have to be the head of the house.
True.
You know, so then now you've got a different dynamic, because, I mean, if God is the head, and then next the man, then the woman, but there's no man.
Ooh.
You know, so I mean, it's like, okay, well, he's got to deal directly with us.
Yes.
You know, so I mean, what else is, what else are we gonna do? So from that standpoint, if there is, say, a family unit where there is a husband, a wife, and there's children, then a man is also responsible for making sure that they are developing in terms of their belief system, what they believe, and that they are promoting and living the kind of lifestyle. Then from the standpoint, if that is happening, then we're not necessarily prey to the things of this world, because now we're giving them what their identity and what their purpose is.
Yes, see, that's good stuff, girl. I tell you, if I can just, we recorded this, so good. We got it on tape. So say, if I can just record it, but we recorded it. Yeah, that's exactly it. A woman is born. Most women don't even think about this.
No.
All right, but when a woman is born, she takes on the identity or the name of a man.
That's true.
All right?
That's true.
Your last name is the man's name.
It is.
All
It
right?
is.
And so when you found a guy to marry him, you already had a man's name.
Right.
All right? My daughter was born Jones. That's my name.
Right.
Even if her mama gave her last name,
Right.
that's still a man's name.
Right. That's
Okay?
true.
It is. Okay? Now again, a lot of women don't think about that. All right, now, there is an order. God has not erased the order. He hadn't kicked it out.
No.
Okay? Now, a woman, when she's born and she's gone out of the father's house, all right, she's on her own. The father will still be her father.
Absolutely.
No matter how old she is, he'll still be her father.
Even when he's gone.
He'll still be her father.
That influence is still there.
That influence is still there. Now, she can be independent, yes, and she bought her own house, what have you. Now, once she gets pregnant, whether the man is there as a husband or whether the man is not there, he's just a seed sower, and then he gone. Now, a child is born. Okay, now you've got an issue of there's no real head in that house, even though she is the so-called head.
Right.
But the order still is there.
Right.
That's why I always tell single mothers to introduce somehow that child to a man figure.
Oh, absolutely.
You really need to do that.
Yeah.
So to give that child an opportunity to be raised under some kind of balance, so that he or she would know
Right.
the difference. There's mama,
Right.
it's father. Because when we don't do that, what happens is you get around Mother's Day time, and you hear these women saying, Father's Day time, you hear these women saying, Happy Father's Day.
That's to me.
To women.
Yeah.
Which is a freak of nature.
Yeah.
Okay?
It is.
And this may sound like a male chauvinistic point, but I don't care. Y'all already know my ministry name.
I don't care.
I don't
Ministry.
care. Yeah, ministries, okay? Okay, I don't care. All right, so but now here's the thing. Now the father, the man, his role also, of course he's a head, but he can't be a head of himself. Meaning, he can't lord his position over the woman.
Right.
And I'm noticing that men are saying that they're the high priest of the home, but you can only, in government, you have a priest and a high priest.
Okay.
So if the man is the high priest, then who is Jesus Christ in the home?
Right. And that's the thing. It's all about authority.
So Jesus Christ is the high priest.
Exactly.
You just a priest.
That's right.
In your home.
But even at that, that's powerful though. If you're under that, if you're functioning under that authority, you know, if you're functioning under that authority, then that's a marvelous thing.
Yes.
It's just like from the standpoint of a woman being submissive to her husband, you know, it can be a wondrous thing. You know, from the standpoint, you have someone whose judgment that you have married that you can trust and whatnot, and you don't have to be the one to come up with all of the ideas, all of the answers all the time.
Right.
You know, so I mean, that you have a partner. You are partnered together.
You're partnered.
You know, so I mean, you know, as I said, women have been taught to kick against the aspect of submission, but I think submission comes into play when sometimes somebody has to have final say. Is basically what that means. It's not from the standpoint of that I lord over you, but it's like more from the standpoint of, okay, well, you have a position, I have a position, but when and they're equally important, but somewhere we've got to draw the line. If we can't take both, then somewhere, you know, it has to, if it's gonna rest upon the man, you know, then it rests upon him.
You didn't bring your Bible today, did you?
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. I was gonna tell you to turn to Titus 2. Yeah.
Titus 2.
Yeah, Titus chapter 2. Titus chapter 2 is gonna help us out, because when it talks about two people, the aged men and the aged women. In the aged men, it gives a bullet points, 6 things that the aged men are supposed to do.
Okay.
When it came down to the aged women, God gave them 18 things to do.
My.
Yes. Y'all got weight on you.
Dang.
Y'all got a lot on you.
Yeah.
But he gave y'all 18 things to do because men got tunnel vision.
Okay.
You know,
I've heard that.
Yeah, we got tunnel vision. We do one thing, we can only do one thing at a time. We try to multitask, we fall over the place, we trip over.
We're great multitaskers.
Yeah, y'all great at that.
Yeah.
So God gave us about 6 things, because he knew we couldn't handle that.
Yeah.
Gave y'all 18.
But
Okay.
in that, but does that still balance? It's not like from the standpoint, you have 6, we have 18, so we're not overworked. But I mean, for example, like you said, we're great multitaskers.
Sure.
So we, even though it's 18 things, you know, it's still maybe from the standpoint, doesn't mean that we have more to do than you guys do. Because we do it better?
No, you were built differently.
Okay.
Adam was born, created, and he can only do so much.
Okay.
Because if he was satisfied, then why was he alone with it, or alone?
Yeah.
He was alone.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
a whole other story.
Yeah, every other beast
had a mate.
See what I'm saying? But he was alone. So God gave him a particular type of human.
Okay.
He didn't give him another Adam.
Right.
Because then we got 2 cooks in the kitchen.
Right.
Okay, and then plus positive and positive is an electrical shock.
Okay.
All right, I'm not gonna go there with you.
Okay.
Okay, so he gave him Eve.
Right.
To be his help meet. All right, because women could see around men. Men can't see around themselves.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
We can't.
Dang.
Y'all see around us. You see, because we're driving north, we can't see west, east, south. Y'all can.
Yeah, well, yeah, we can't. We see that thing coming up.
See what I'm saying? Oh, absolutely. Which says that there's co-rulership, Shante says, and then there's final responsibility.
Okay.
There it is. Many people leave out the mutuality of submission between partners, which is also
that's
they
it.
stop reading the text short of the complete picture. Tony Evans' book Kingdom Marriage has some great teaching on it. That's true. Tony Evans, of course, is an amazing teacher. But I always bring that up. We always talk about the submission of the woman, but the scriptures, Apostle Paul, I think he said, to submit you one to another.
Submit you one to another.
One to another, okay? And I hear dominant men always bring up the chauvinistic way in church.
Aspect of submission.
Yes, always in church we hear the obeyed submission from the woman's part. The man is always on top of everything, okay? He's not supposed to show any kind of emotional compassion, or it's always that chauvinistic, okay,
and that's attribute. A fallacy. That's a fallacy.
It is a fallacy, because when you read scripture, it's actually the opposite, because it talks about the word love.
Right, but let me tell you something else. If you so dominate a woman,
Yes.
if you so dominate a woman under the aspect of submission, you will never get out of her the gifts that God has placed in her for you to receive.
Totally agree.
You know, you have to allow her to have that expression without it being any kind of a conflict by her expressing that. You know what I'm saying? But you also maybe need to keep those 6 things that you guys keep the road, you keep the car on that road. See, sometimes we might be able to kind of, you know, what have you, maybe get off the road just a little bit, maybe. You know what I'm saying? But you've got to, how am I putting this? You don't squash what God has given your woman to give, because He's given it to give to you.
Don't squash it.
Don't squash it.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, don't squash it. Okay, that's family. All right, there's a whole lot in the family, because even how to raise your children, it is the responsibility of the father. Okay, as we go back to I don't know, Leviticus chapter 11, Deuteronomy 11 or 7. Okay, trying to take and help me out about teaching the children to pray. Okay, put it on their head, on the forehead, put it on their chest when they go in and when they go out, when they go to sleep at night. Okay, the responsibility is at home. You don't allow the school to do it.
Not the government.
Not the government, not even the temple. Okay, it's supposed to be taught at home first. Do Bible study home first.
That's right.
And that was the directive to the man that was in the home at the time. Okay, unfortunately today we have a lot of the men are not in the home.
No.
So of course that's been passed to the women to do that, because the man is not around. So don't say ain't no man around, so I ain't gonna do it.
Right.
And that's ridiculous, because this is your child, all right? So you're supposed to teach the children the scriptures and to love God at home.
At home.
You don't send them out to learn.
No.
At home, okay? So, and then when that child is getting older, the child will understand this personal relationship with God.
True.
That is not some trend or some religious thing that I'm supposed to do.
Right.
That child at nighttime is going to be speaking to God on him.
They're having their own relationship with
Absolutely. Okay, that's what we're supposed to teach them.
Exactly.
Okay, and that's not just a Hebrew thing. That is a God thing.
That is a universal thing.
Universal thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a lot of times too, from the standpoint, you're saying from the standpoint, there are not always men that can be relied upon to do that.
Right.
And I know that from experience. I've asked certain men, you know, to be available for certain young men. And they said, you know, yes, but it hadn't happened. So, you know, it's very, men really need to be able to embrace that part of their responsibility a whole lot more.
A whole lot more. And I totally agree, okay? So ladies, if you're too busy to do it, then you need to find somebody who can help you with that.
That's trustworthy.
Yeah, I can say maybe it's your natural father.
Yes.
Okay? Since you're sitting up under a pastor, since you've been under there long enough to trust him, then see if he could do it. Of course, a lot of times, many times they're busy and they got so many things going on. So try to find someone.
And there are trustworthy men out there.
There really are. We always
know
look
there's some not so much.
Yes,
yeah.
there really are. Really a lot of them out there. Okay, find an elder who you trust. Okay, and you know if you trust them or not.
Yes.
If y'all say y'all got women's intuition, stop only using it to find out if a man is cheating on you. Use it to raise
discern
up,
his
to
phone.
discern.
Yeah.
Okay, so stop messing with that discern stuff. Okay, Shante says one of the most powerful texts for me is the king who gives Esther the pen and the power to reverse and decree that he had written. To me, that shows the partnership that can happen when you recognize you're both called to rule. Yes.
It's beautiful.
Yep. Yes. Husbands means house band, the one who bands the house together. That's what husband means. Okay. Absolutely. All right. Beautiful. So that's the family structure. Whether the man is in there or not, ladies, you have a responsibility, regardless of if he's there or not.
Exactly.
You still get that responsibility.
Exactly.
All right. So you can get out of it. All right.
Exactly.
Excluded from it. So that's household. That's family. The second one was what?
Religion and faith.
Okay, religion and faith is what we've been talking about.
Yes.
For the past 2 hours. What's the next one?
Education.
Education, okay, the whole aspect of educating yourself, and you don't really need to go to a 4-year, 6-year, 2-year university for education. We think that that's all that means, education is paying for it. you know, but that's not true. That's not where it stops. So some people don't have to go there at all.
Oh, no. Some people go to YouTube
They go
University.
to YouTube University. I go to Google Institute
Google,
of Technology.
that's right.
Okay, I go there a lot. I have a lot of books in my house through the encyclopedia.
Read.
Mr. Britannica has blessed me. Read, educate yourself, research.
We have a glut of information now. There's no excuse.
None.
And as I said, so you have to go by the correct sources. But yes, you know, we have a glut of information.
A lot. This is the information highway.
Absolutely.
You just mentioned that, okay? I said that was the last break of the evening, but I guess I missed this one. All right, we had 20 and 40 minutes of the hour.
Because we need to wrap some stuff up.
Yeah, we really need to wrap some stuff up real fast, okay? All right, so I'm going to this last break of Urban Broadcast Media. I'm going to keep talking to y'all, okay? I promise you that. So Walter Jones Show. Okay? So, education, some of you enrolling in Bible colleges, what have you, that's your choice. Okay? None of that is necessarily mandatory.
Right.
All right? So you do what you need to do as far as they're concerned. Okay, what's the next list?
Oh, media. Oh, government.
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 Oh, boy.
Government law.
Government.
/ law.
/ law.
Yeah.
All right. Now, as you know, many Christians and still today feel like they don't need to vote.
Oh.
They don't need to register.
That hurts. That hurts. And then,
That's
but see,
in the narrative
you
sense.
cannot. But if you don't vote, and I don't care if you're a part of a group, you know, certain groups is like, oh, well, we don't vote. But the thing is, you are still subject to the laws of this land. You know, you're going to come subject to you or your children. So, I mean, and not only, even those of us who do vote, we don't advocate the way that we should. You know, we should advocate with our lawmakers. I mean, that's how other people with other agendas got the laws that are passed that we resent so much. Okay, well, fine. They advocate for those laws. You know, while we were sitting there doing nothing. We didn't say anything. We complain. We always complain, but we don't do anything. Even other races, they will write in, let people know, we won't even bother to put pen to paper. You know, so. Yes.
My God, today.
Yeah.
But you're on top of it there.
Yeah.
You're on top of it. Back in the all through 1900s, and especially the white evangelicals, they're like, we don't need votes. Because Jesus is coming again.
Right.
And he's going to take his kingdom.
Right.
Okay, he's going to establish his kingdom.
Right.
So there's no need for us to continue to register, stand in long lines to vote.
Right.
That was what they believed. And then Ronald Reagan came on the scene, and they found someone who they felt was a representative of them, and then they by the millions, they went out there and registered, and then they voted for the man, and the man let them down. He didn't pass any laws that had any meaning for white evangelicals.
Right.
And so you would have thought that they was done with that, but because they took a bite of politics,
a bite of it.
it tasted good to them. They stayed in it.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Sir Walter Jones Show. Yes, I am he, believe it or not, and she is she. And we're talking about politics, the role of church in government. And laws.
And our laws.
Okay?
Yeah.
Our laws. We've got 9 men and women that sits in this place called the Supreme Court. Okay? They got black robes on.
Absolutely.
Okay? And they decide. They are one of the 3 branches of our government. Okay? Executive, whether Donald Trump sits in.
Absolutely.
Keep praying for us. Okay? And the legislative, which is Congress.
Yes.
And then the judicial, which is those 9 people.
Yes.
Okay? And we were going a long time, just 8, because, you know, one guy died and took a while.
Yeah, that's right.
And then President Obama, he suggested a man, but the other side says, we ain't got time. Yeah. You on your way out, you're lamed up. Right. You ain't got no power to do nothing else. Right. You just sit on your lamed up. Right. Okay? And so they waited till this man got in office so they could put Gershon, whatever his name is in there. Okay, all right, so it's complete, but these laws here go through these men and women. Now Congress, they legislate, they write up bills and laws and what have you, but the Supreme Court judge, they make rulings because we can't get along. Okay. That's really what their job is. Okay. All right. Okay. But Christians, the influence over these laws do we have any representation in the House of Representatives or the Senate or in the White House? Because all three of these have some kind of influence. The Senate and the House of Representatives, they write bills and pass laws, but the executive, because these branches are equal but separate. Okay?
Checks and balances.
Checks and balances. One checks the other. So Congress can't just pass laws and throw it out there.
Willy-nilly.
Okay, because the executive branch got to sign it. And then if he don't like it, he does a veto. And it goes back. Okay. Where are the Christians in any of this? And what kind of influence can we have over this process?
That's I think that is the question.
Ooh.
Do we have, should we do that? And I think that we should, because we do abide in this land.
We do.
You know, we do abide, we do live here. We can say that, we're not I'm the first one to say, look, I'm a citizen of heaven, but I still live here. If I go out there and I blow a law or what have you, or run a stop sign or what have you, and there's a cop car, they're coming for me, and I can't tell them I'm on my heavenly route going anywhere, doing anything. So yeah, while we're here, we gotta abide by the laws of the land. So how do we abide by laws of the land that don't represent us or don't take us into consideration? So we definitely, if we want that kind of influence, I think that we need to, and in terms of the church's responsibility, I think that in all of this, it's kind of like inspire, teach what these aspects are and how we can influence them. Raise our children so that they can become more mindful of, you never know if their gifting is to go into politics. But a lot of times we don't look at it that way. We look at, ooh, politics, that's the devil. So in other words, something's happening there, we don't know what it is, and then it affects us nonetheless, then we complain about it. So I think that as we live here, we also have the opportunity to be able to impact these things, and then we don't. It's the issue of abortion. We the first to say, that we do not want abortion, but at the same time, we don't influence these laws. We don't influence anything, so then it comes down to it and whatnot, and that they're paying for someone to have an abortion that decided that, they weren't going to take their own precautions to not have the birth occur. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, if you don't want to have babies, then you should practice birth control. But then if you don't practice birth control, and then you decide that you want the government to pay for it or what have you, is that something that we should be advocating? I think that's been a long debate, from the standpoint, in terms of that sort of thing. Should we, from the standpoint, we don't have anybody in position to advocate for us in that regard. So should we let it go, let everybody else dictate, throw their word into the ring, or should we also be there advocating for our position?
Should we be there? Yes, so we have an opportunity of having a presence.
Yes.
A physical presence in every aspect of government.
Yes.
We do. But we shun away from it because they felt that, well, Jesus is coming soon, so why bother? But Angela Elaine, what you're saying here, we must participate in politics.
Okay.
And that's partly why we got who we got, who was supported by hackers, which was so easy to do. Of course, believe it or not, Donald Trump got in there by a whole lot of us, though.
Yeah.
I know a lot of black folk who voted for Trump.
Oh, I know them too.
And the evangelicals voted for him like crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, Shantae Charles says racism is spelled with policy, P-O-L-I-C.
That's true.
Yeah, unless we get in front of policy, we will continue to see the rollback of rights. We must not only have policy, but money to back those candidates who will advocate and lobby for our policies that don't harm us, which is right. The largest Christian PAC right now is run by the radical right and is driving some of the current bigoted policy actions out now. Exactly. And that's why I keep bringing up the white evangelical. They are a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, they are.
And they have a different belief system than many of the African American Christians. Okay,
That's true.
Even though we said we're serving one God, we got one Bible, but we got two different thoughts.
They are largely influenced by some things that are directly opposed to us.
Yes.
So, I'm not even to open that can of worms, but yeah.
Yes.
So then what do we do? Do we take it, or are we supposed to then develop our own influence? We're to get involved,
Yes. What's the next one on your list?
Oh, let's see. Media, news, commentary, all of that.
Media, news, and commentary. We have been kicked
to the curb, knocked off every time. That's why they have. I was listening to a documentary that was done by CNN regarding race and how it was, and how children were perceiving race, and they showed them a chart of the same little child, a cartoon child, but from different shades of skin, from dark to white. Yeah. So then they asked the child, which one do you think is the smartest? Which one do you think? And and it was amazing to me that these children, how their perceptions at their young age were so racial. It was racially embedded within them that dark was bad. Black was bad. The bad child is the black child. The blacker the child was, the worse that child was, and whatnot. And but that is it's partially how they're raised, but it's also the perception of media. I was listening to in Brazil, I didn't even realize from the standpoint, they don't even hardly have black people in entertainment and on the media and all represented. So to them, the good and the best is white or light or bright in that regard, and that's what they get inundated with on a daily basis. So, from the standpoint of not controlling media and not being, we are subject to whatever those that are in control decide to show or determine what is right. So then we become, that's either the mindset that we either accept or we rail against. So
you brought up a good point there, because even in that study, even the black kids were like, this black dog,
right, not good.
Not good, it's evil.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
media.
Bad.
Yeah, it's really sad. Okay, we came up under some black faces. That we were proud. We saw a black man on the news. We were like, wow, look. And when I'm not talking about just local, but I'm talking about like with Brian Gumbo. Okay, he was like, but many of us when I was coming up, he still was kind of whitish black.
Right.
Because he tall. His hair. You know what I'm saying? So he really didn't.
He wasn't from the hood.
He didn't really count that much.
Yeah.
We did have another guy. I forgot his name. He's old now, but it's a shame you can only think about two. All right. Locally, yeah, we got some great black guys. Now, we've got nationally, we got a few black guys. Okay, like on CNN.
That's why we still hold President Obama up into the degree that we do because of that.
But my point of now that we have black guys in the media, many of them are straddling that identity fence.
Yeah.
Yeah, they keep coming out
but
gay.
That's
what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, coming out gay. Okay. All right. So that's
another
media.
question.
That's
another
issue. Yes, the dog test is still relevant today. Wait, let's see what she's in here. Jamaica, particularly Kingston, is having a bleaching crisis among the young men and women there. Absolutely.
And Africa. As I said, I'm half African. But as I said, they said that skin lightening products there are billion-dollar industry because they are constantly they're taught from the standpoint of lightening their skin, and you can even tell like from the standpoint of someone whose skin has been bleached. It just is different. It doesn't have that luster anymore that's inherited, but at the same time they're lighter. So if you're swapping luster for lightness,
luster for lightness.
Yeah.
What's the next one on your list?
Arts and entertainment.
Man, we got that on lockdown.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Arts and entertainment.
But at the same time,
we're being used.
Exactly. We're being used to promote. Exactly. Bamboozle. That whole thing.
Run amok.
Exactly.
Arts.
So
NFL.
Yeah, I was listening to
NBA.
from the standpoint of the agenda that was when hip hop came. That from the standpoint how initially they weren't trying to promote that kind of agenda, but at the same time, the record industry, the record promoters, the record presidents and whatnot wanted to promote this kind of atmosphere, this kind of gangster kind of thing, you know, so that took a lot of the direction in which that went.
Took a lot of direction in which that went, okay, and what's the last one? What's the last one?
Business,
economics, and health. We talk about that next time on this wonderful show here. I want to thank you, Crystal, for coming here again. Boy, I tell you, boy, you keep hanging around. Don't go nowhere in December. All right, keep coming around in the morning. Okay, meet me at the Met. That's November 17th. Okay, we're gonna be here tomorrow talking more about it. Sunday school lesson with Elder Rodney Jones. Thank y'all, everybody who's chimed in on YouTube over there and on Facebook Live over there and Facebook Live on the Sir Walter Jones wall. Okay, thank you, Alvin Washington, for all that you do. Love you guys. This is it.
Bye bye.
Sir Walter Jones Show. Oh boy. Man, another great one, another great one. Sports, Shantae says sports.
Oh, sports.
Absolutely.
Sports,
well, and that's part of, I think it's part of entertainment.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Okay, you got art entertainment, which is the umbrella,
absolutely.
all that stuff up under that, sports and music and writing, of course, art.
Right.
And fine arts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we've been pimped.
Yeah, because we dominate in those areas, but we have nothing really to show for it.
We don't own nothing, because the art institutes, they own them.
Right, exactly.
The sports arenas and teams, they own them, okay? The conservatories, they own them, okay? Gosh, we don't even make the instruments. They own the instruments, they even make them, they produce them.
We just use them, and they get rich off of us.
They get rich off of them. You know, we know how to use them, but we don't make them. So, in here lies the problem, boy. I tell you, except the Lord comes soon, I don't know what you black folk gonna be doing. I don't know, because the Hispanics gonna be the majority in a few more years.
You know, they kind of are already.
Yeah,
it's like
pretty
they
much.
are really. If you look at it, even in terms of God, I was looking years ago at the fact that you used to be able to go and a lot of the jobs that high-level white people have are now owned by Hispanics.
Yep.
You know.
Sure live. Sure live. They doing it, y'all. So we could learn a lesson from them.
Yeah.
We can learn a lesson from them and the Asians. They're not worried and crying too much like we are about the man and politics. They ain't worried about it because they build their own. And when the child is born, they put their children in school.
Yeah.
And raise them up in their community. Yeah, slave leasing in many cases. That's right.
Wow.
Slave leasing. That's what the NFL is.
Wow.
Yeah, you're being traded.
Yeah.
Yeah, my guy. They call it
Ownership. Oh, see, that's just
Yeah, they call it ownership.
That's just right.
We own you, and that's the same way as the music business. That's why Michael Jackson was having to fight with Sony Records the way he was, and Prince was having to fight.
Music that he made.
Yeah, because he called them devils. He did an interview and said he called them devils.
Call them devils.
Sweet Michael called them devils. Okay.
He said that they were devils.
Because that contract that could have been a disaster.
But you're fast.
Those contracts really are ownership. And you by law, they do own you.
They do.
Okay, you can